that next Friday you will be seeing Origen go up against Misfits for those interested, and I would highly recommend you check out that game. But backtracking now to the game at hand, Syndra once again being taken away, and these are just targeted bans towards PowerOfEvil. No reason to change very much up for H2K because, I mean, why fix something that isn't broken?
Yeah, exactly. No changes yet to the bans. Syndra and Bard for Schalke. It was Shen, Karma, LeBlanc for Origen. And so far, again, no changes, despite the fact it's now reversed, blue side, red side. What's coming next?
Well, I feel like we could potentially see another Cogmore ban from H2K. There's no reason as to why they should really change anything up. There was no big threats from the side of OG. Perhaps a Fiora ban, so they can put more emphasis on something like the Trundle. But there's still a lot on the table, and it's actually going to be a Cassio ban, so another ban directed towards Power. And now, he has had some great performances on the Cassio in the past. I know it's one of the champions that he's had some decent amount of success on.
Oh yes. 2 games played, 2 wins. He went 26 and 11. Kills, deaths, assists. But if a Cassio is being banned out, and you consider that a counter to some champions, what do you think this implies for H2K?
Typically, one of the go-to picks that a Cassio has been very good into is the Vladimir.
Okay.
But we know that Ryu can play Vladimir, but I feel like right now the roaming style for Ryu seems to really be what he prefers. So with the Blanc still left up available, it was banned game 1. Could be something that H2K look to prioritize once more. Highly unlikely in the first pick.
Trundle first pick here? We know Vander can play Trundle. We know
likely
Odo can play that a lot.
Oh, Malz, we did it again.
How do
we did it again?
I'm going to put a sticky note on the monitor and just say Malzahar.
It's because I'm so used to him being banned that you don't think of it as the first pick. And the thing that does a little bit upset me, quick shot, is the fact that I honestly think that Zilean is a really good pick into it. TSM and other teams in North America have been running it regularly, yet no one in Europe is doing. People are still picking Karma mid into it, which I think Karma is okay, but it's like, think about what Malzahar does, where he picks a single target, nukes them down, and then the ultimate from the Zilean completely counters that. Completely. And it's such a good pick into the Malz that I'm very surprised that no one in Europe is picking it up.
We'll find out whether or not they do. It's a champion that was been it was flirted with in the European meta, but not something that's ever really been prolific. And in the last few seconds, Origen going to lock in the Tahm Kench and the Rek'Sai. So going to go back to that sort of save all. Also, there is that flex power in Tahm. Can be played by Hybrid and sOAZ.
It's a great pick as well into the Malzahar. Again, anything that protects you from single target damage is always going to be a good pick into the Malzahar. It also mitigates the need to go for a very early QSS that we saw from Ryu in game 1. And the fact that you have this Tahm Kench basically means, okay, if you get ulted, he can gobble you up. But it does mean that he's limited to how he can use that consume. Because if he has to prioritize on peeling, then he can't be aggressive, dive onto backline, try and act as someone CC and obnoxious.
A lot of potential, a lot of power, and different options for Origen, depending on where they want to lock it in. H2K going to decide on their jungle route. Now, in the previous game, Jankos went for that Elise. He went for the Proto Belt. I did not feel it was that impactful.
I felt like Jankos wasn't that impactful.
Touche, didn't need to be.
No, he didn't.
You know, there was no need for him to carry because the rest of the team was carrying.
Yep.
And that's a positive sign. I think he got the Proto Belt just to deal with Ryu's walls, if it ever came up, but it wasn't needed. This time we're going to pivot, play the Hecarim that he played yesterday. Had a fantastic game with yesterday, though.
So, the interesting thing that I found about Jankos' Hecarim is how aggressive he's willing to play on it. The fact that he's always looking to try and invade wherever he can is something that I feel is quite unique to him as a Hecarim player, but it's something that you kind of need because he is very much feast or famine, something that you highlight earlier on in the day where Trinity Force is somewhat core on him because it gives him everything that he needs, gives him such a massive damage spike, but until he gets there, he really struggles to have an impact in the game. So it's very important that you get yourself this lead. You can begin a bit of a snowball, you need a gold disparity between you and the enemy jungler so you can really start to have a big impact.
Last few seconds there for Origen to lock in here, and you know, the one thing about PowerOfEvil, the potential that he offered when he was brought in to replace xPeke to join the lineup, I don't feel it's ever really been realized. This is a guy who is truly, truly typecast when he plays. He's got a specific subset of champions that he does well on, and this ranged poke style of this Varus, the Kog'Maws, is something where he truly excelled. The problem is, it's not super meta right now. You know, it can work, but it's part of the reason PowerOfEvil has not had that kind of impact that Origen fans were hoping for.
I feel like one of the big issues for PowerOfEvil was something that was echoed early on when he initially joined Origen, where he played in a team that very much played around him. And Origen have never been a big team that played around their mid laner. Yeah. And so because Power's never really been set up for success, he thrives on champions like Varus that don't need very much attention because they are very passive in their nature, and the whole role of him is to stand back and poke from a distance. You are effectively providing support.
Hold that thought. LeBlanc last pick. Odo's going to get Mel's up top. LeBlanc into Varus. That's going to be a interesting matchup and challenge for PowerOfEvil to deal with.
Now, we've seen this from H2K in the past, where they have brought out the Malzahar top. They picked it into the Shen previously, but this time
it didn't work very well.
No, it worked extremely well.
In the game, in the context of the game, they still ended up losing that matchup.
Wait, did they?
Yes, they did. No, I lied to you. I lied to you. I lied to you.
You're doubting me?
I misread my own stats. I
remember casting that game.
There we go.
Quick shot, and I was like, I'm sure they won that.
What do you think of it into Gnar this time around?
I think that it'll do a very similar thing. Early game, it struggles. You're going to get pushed underground. You're going to get pushed under turret. But in terms of wave clear, no one can match it. You will not kill that Malzahar, ever, because he can just push the wave. It is a very long lane. He's going to be very safe. He can just go back into the jungle and farm. And we can delve more into it once we get into the game, because it is quite an interesting matchup overall as the game progresses. But compositionally wise, H2K have good team fighting, but more so they have really good 1-3-1, really good disengage, and just really good tower taking.
And what do you make of the Origen team composition? Gnar, Rek'Sai, Varus, Kog'Maw, Tahm Kench. So very much a peel back, sort of, you know, kite and poke fight. But they need to buy enough time for Peke to plant himself and use that the Bioarcane Barrage, his W, to spit out damage all day.
It's a bit of a strange comp. When I've seen the most success, it has come from when you play purely around the Kog'Maw, because he is super low mobile, but in return he gets crazy amounts of damage.
Right.
And now you've got a Varus in the mid, who also needs to be peeled and protected for in the backline. And then you've also got a Gnar who isn't really the best at peel. If he's in mini-Gnar form, you can just straight up ignore him. And there are so many avenues to get onto this Varus and Kog'Maw. And I feel like initially the idea was okay, but I don't consider Kog'Maw to be a poke champion.
The other thing is, Origen opted into this, knowing that Hecarim and Braum were locked in. The Hecarim's the big one for me, because Hecarim is always going to have opportunities and possibilities to dive onto either the Varus or the Kog'Maw, depending on which target is more appropriate.
Entirely, yeah.
And then, of course, that last rotation, LeBlanc, means that Ryu is going to be looking to flank. He's going to be looking to play in the side lanes. We know he's got teleport flash. That's something we've seen on LeBlanc a few times as well, so that's going to open up even more opportunities, especially if H2K keep up the level of warding and vision that they did from the first game.
But to emphasize that, who's going to go side lane against this LeBlanc? I mean, you can't put the Gnar there. Gnar will die. You can't put the Varus there, because Varus is going to die. This is an assassin. The whole point of LeBlanc is to kill squishy targets. When you're in mini-Gnar, you are extremely squishy. You don't get the bonus stats that you get from being in the Mega Gnar form. Varus, sure, he can build himself a Banshees, but even against the LeBlanc, that's just not going to be enough damage. And I think that OG have drafted poorly in this game.
It is a question that Origen will have to answer on the Rift. In game one, I believe 63% of you were in favor of that hashtag OG win. And unfortunately, it did not work out. H2K with a superior team in game one. We're loading up onto the Rift for game two and the final of the regular season for Origen and H2K. Unless we have a tiebreaker with H2K Fnatic later today.
Well, they're on track for it right now.
Yep, it'll be pending G2 versus Fnatic.
Yep. And we've had a lot of exciting games today. We've had a lot of exciting games today. My diction just entirely off. But also we've had some back and forth. We've had a mixture, I feel.
Yes, sir.
And we've also had a bit of banter. So if you've only just joined us on EULCS2,
thank you.
That's what you should
look
get ready
back.
for.
I especially enjoyed the pre-game discussions of Origen H2K from before Game 1 and before Game 2. Let's not rehash it.
It's not.
It's not a flavor that everybody likes.
I'm sorry, I just have to look at his long flowing hair. Isn't
fantastic,
it wonderful?
isn't
it? I just saw it and I was like,
is that the Dark Star Varus?
Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah. I find the...
I don't like his face, but his hair is great.
Piercing arrows are terrifying on that champion. Double teleports, which you've already alluded to. Deep vision placed by both squads. So lane swap has not been initiated just yet. But the ability to do so will be available. And it looks like H2K are going to reveal first. Good word, warding from Origen. Though Peke and Hybrid are already in the top lane. So do you expect them to stay there?
Yeah. They're Kog'Maw, not the greatest laner when paired up with a Tahm Kench. You can be aggressive if you have an aggressive support. But Tahm Kench, while doing well into melee matchups, the all-in potential level 6 is something that OG are very aware of. And remember that when you look at a Tristana's ability to shove the wave, it is actually quite terrifying. And hybrids, oh.
Wow, so cheeky.
Well played, hybrids. That was really smart because he not only consumed the wolf, but he also knew that the minions, or the small voidlings from Odo, would follow the minion because it had the Malefic Vision on it, and then it would get the kill.
Okay.
So that was smart. I enjoyed it.
Helped get the kill, gets himself a little bit of an experience boost. Denies that to Jankos, of course, on that Hecarim. And we're into lane swap. The first game's lane swap was not massively pivotal.
Nope.
It came out very even on both sides. I think H2K got the first dragon, if I recall correctly. This time round, the dragon is Infernal again, once
Ooh.
more. We've had a lot of Infernals today.
Yeah, gracing us with their presence. But remember, the Ryu also experienced an unpleasant start.
Yes.
Not going to happen this game against the Tahm Kench. But still playing aggressively.
Oh, good damage from Ryu onto PoE. Trading back and forth, though.
This is a matchup that many people may not have seen.
For a while.
Yeah, for a while. And typically during the laning phase, it's actually all right for PowerOfEvil because he can just farm with his basic attacks, which means that he can save his mana purely for poke. And every time Ryu tries to play aggressively, you can actually just throw down the E from Varus that will instantly damage him, slow him, and it will guarantee that you can get that Q proc off. So early laning phase can go quite well for a Varus. It's fairly safe. The risk comes once you hit that level 6 mark, because the all-in burst that Ryu has is something that Power just won't be able to trade back against.
No, and especially not with Ghost Flash. So he's gone for the full utility in terms of mobility, as opposed for Exhaust or Barrier or Heal, which are all summons that we've actually seen on Varus many times in the past. So got to keep an eye on how those fights play out. Jankos going to equalize the Wolf Steel.
Fool me once, I am fooling for it again.
Hybrid's going to clear out the camp, at least reset that timer. And we'll be moving into phase 2 of the lane swap. But this time around, there's some shenanigans on the horizon. Peke is not going to meet Odo. Instead, is going up top. So not looking to trade 2 towers apiece. What do you make of that?
Interesting. So they've decided to revert back to standard lanes. Part of me thinks that...
Despite the matchup.
Yeah, despite the matchup. It looks like that OG have actually said, you know, right now, through the early levels, we think that we're okay now. Given that Tahm Kench does do relatively well into these melee matchups, they're saying, hey, we can fight this. But we'll have to see. I do want to keep my eyes on how the 2 versus 2 goes, because typically I would expect Forgiven and Vander to just keep pushing in the wave, and then at the level 6 mark, they should just have full control over the 2v2.
And they've got an advantage there as well. 34 CS slightly up. Forgiven already level 4. Peke still playing catch-up. And sOAZ now needs to deal with being shoved in. Those Voidlings are difficult to deal with.
So this is something that I didn't highlight, which I maybe should have, was the fact that if you just consider the ability of taking towers, you have a Malzahar versus a Gnar. They would actually have a massive tempo advantage, and that could allow H2K to quickly rotate down with multiple members and then look to contest the Infernal Drake and get an early one on the board.
And is the implication that Malzahar with the Voidlings is better, or Gnar with the auto attacks being stronger?
Yeah, Malz with the Voidlings would be a lot stronger at taking down those turrets, especially when you pair that up with a Tristana too. So I think that OG have just sacrificed their potentially weaker 2 versus 2 in order to avoid giving an early Inferno Drake over to H2K.
Yeah, and of course the potential of even more towers, right? Longer lane now for Forgiven and Vander to deal with. Amazing. Sniffing out some opportunities on this Rek'Sai. Remember, this is the Rek'Sai with the lower tick rate on his passive, on the Tremor Sense. So we'll see a little bit less. Jankos caught a glimpse of Amazing clearing out that ward, so Jankos has moved his way up 24 CS to 27. And it is the Tiamat build for Rek'Sai once again. Something we're seeing just a little more frequently. More diversity in the itemization. And I quite like that.
Does mean you lose out on some early vision, though. And we critiqued Origen's early vision in the game before. And something that I do want to mention is the fact that we discussed how I don't think Taliyah would be a ban because Ryu is just a player that likes to roam. And on any champion that can roam, he will do it. And on LeBlanc, there's no reason why he can't do exactly what he did in game 1.
Now, taking a look at this trade, Vander steps in front of Forgiven, puts up that unbreakable wall. Something else we didn't really discuss heavily, just how valuable he's going to be. sOAZ at level 5 reckons he fancies his chances. Malefic Visions. There's 3, 4 Voidlings. The silence comes out. Odo may have just won this trade with the help of Amazing. sOAZ is going to be able to get away. But in terms of the 1v1, Odo comes out ahead. And to finish the thought, that Unbreakable, if timed appropriately, is going to block either the Biochem Barrage or a number of piercing arrows.
Yeah.
And it's going to be up to Vander to make sure he times that appropriately, because that could also really change the outcome of a fight.
Here's the roam.
Here's the roam indeed. xPeke manages to make it up for now. Onslaught of Shadows, defensive flash from Hybrid. He's popped the Grey Health very early on. Kill credit will be secured by the King of First Blood's Jankos. Amazing. Going to take a lot of damage. Malefic Visions going to allow those Voidlings to chase him down. And sOAZ still around. Remember, he took all that damage from the earlier trade. It's H2K with First Blood.
So they try to force a play up in the top lane. They're able to successfully set up the dive. Peke, he had no mana. He'd burn up a lot of his health, but fortunately Hybrid was there to help him get him out at the cost of his own life. So Hybrid burns all of his summoners. When you combine that with the single target CC of Vander and Ryu, there is very little that he can do to escape. But now we see Amazing coming in. Potential teleport gank is available.
There is a teleport coming in from sOAZ already. Forgiving gets interrupted on the knockup. Flash is available. Vander and Forgiven send Amazing packing. Nethergroth comes out, but it's Odoamne that gets killed. sOAZ has got the damage. Flash for flash. Boomerang doesn't slow anyone. Very, very long lane, and Vander stands behind the minion. Manages to escape. Summoner's blown. OG are on the board.
A bit of miscommunication there for H2K as they try to force a play in the top lane. But hang on a second, because we have a replay of the former fight. This is where you see the roam from Ryu moving up to the top half of the map. He shoved in mid. You know it's fine to move up here. Chain in through the minions. Locks down Hybrid. Plenty of time to enable them to get the kill. Peke, with no mana, really can't offer very much. And now you see the man on your screen pushing up the top lane into the turret. So that previous gank initially looked quite bad for OG because Amazing came in initially. He took a lot of damage. sOAZ then tried to follow up with the TP. And then Odo joins, overcommits too much, gets left for dead from OG.
A little too aggressive and too eager. All right, challenge on blue buff here. Origen starting to group up. Is secured by, was that Ryu that got it? Taking a look at Thomas. Yeah, he manages to steal it with a combo. And of course, we saw the replay of First Blood. Jankos secured First Blood in this game. H2K have played 36 games this split. In 18 of them, Jankos has either secured First Blood or got an assist. 9 kills, 9 assists. The thing that I find amazing, there's an additional 6 games where he's been the person that has given up First Blood. Now, I can't say conclusively that all of those have been in, like, you know, a 2v2 scenario or whatever, but it is just crazy to think that in 24 out of the 36 games, Jankos has been around First Bloods. He really does read the early game at an incredible level.
Yes, he does. And this is why he gets the reputation of being so early game centric. He does like to play around his laners and set them up for success. It looks like he is going for more of the conventional Hecarim build that we do see, the rush of the Trinity Force, as opposed to Shook's rush of the Cinderhulk. They will secure themselves an early Infernal Drake as well, thanks to the pressure they have on the bottom half of the map, as well as the wave that was shoved up by Odo in the top half. no teleport available on sOAZ, and there was no way he could get involved. And then PowerOfEvil, he's struggling right now against the 0-0-1 LeBlanc.
Yeah, 20 CS down, towers under pressure. Good chain of corruption, but there's no one to follow up and nowhere for it to spread. So Odo, Ryu, and Jankos, they're forced away. They don't get the tower, so at the very least, PowerOfEvil has stalled that one out. Next Dragon was Ocean Drake. That'll be up in about 5.5 minutes. And H2K, they're just playing the pressure game. They're up 1,000 gold. The charge on the tower is going to explode, and H2K have just got so many tools to deal with anything that Origen wants to put forward.
The thing is, H2K could set up a 1-3-1 if they want, right? They could put LeBlanc in a side lane, they could put Malzahar in the top, and they could have Trist, Braum, and Hecarim sit in the mid. As speaking of Hecarim, has found sOAZ.
Oh, great fear. Flashing in there, the grass. sOAZ should go down here. Hops over, about one more rampage. Jankos picks up the second kill of the game. sOAZ is a little eager on that pressure. Yeah, the bomb damage. Tags hybrid.
Cool interaction, just really quickly. Malefic Vision will still hit the target that's inside the consumed, but the explosive charge will not. It will hit the Tahm Kench instead. There you go, fun fact.
How does that make sense?
No, science.
Science, okay. That works for me. You know what? I can get behind that decision.
But that play from sOAZ, all he was trying to do was get some deep vision down, and unfortunately he paid for it with his life. That's why you should always have a ward buddy, Quickshot.
Yep.
I would always be your buddy when warding.
Thank you. It's not safe to go alone.
Nope.
Take Vedi with you.
No, I'm lying. Oh, no, he did. He walked up to try and get ward down on the blue buff. He already had a ward there, and he didn't see Jankos lying away in the bush, so...
Mission accomplished. He got the ward into the blue buff.
Yes, he did.
And it is still there to this day. Albeit it cost his life, but it still counts. And Origen under some pressure. Peke was poked out, I can only assume, by Ryu. As Origen find themselves in a 2,000 gold deficit. This time around, they've got some vision, though, so that is impressive to note. And if you look at the mini-map, ladies and gentlemen, H2K are setting themselves up in that 1-3-1. No, Ryu, go away, go down, make my statement true.
He's already done it. He was there.
Okay,
it's fine, because he's pushed the wave up. Now he's grouping because someone from Origen has to go deal with the wave. H2K now have the numbers advantage in the mid, so now they're going to try and force a play. They have the Hecarim ult, they have the Malz. Ult isn't quite up yet, but he has the damage dealing to turrets that should make taking down this mid turret fairly easy.
That will be the third of the game for H2K. It's already chunked so low. Unless my math is terrible, I think we're about 2.5 minutes away from the next dragon, which explains why the scuttle is starting to be picked up. Vision being placed 1, 2, 3 pink wards in the river. I think H2K are signaling to me, Vedi, that they're interested in the next dragon.
No.
Yeah, I don't know what gives me that vibe. Tower will fall here. Explosive charge not even used by Forgiven. Pink ward was pushed deeper, so that third one that was in the river was now placed in the blue buff, and that is vision superiority. That's almost inappropriate amount of vision.
They can see the light, Quickshot, and they can also see the entire half of Origen's map.
Yeah.
And that should enable them to set up for the Drake. Unfortunately, it is a little bit early. They do obviously have the pink wards for that, but yes. Another fun fact, if you're sitting in the brush and a minion dies, you still get tagged. You don't have to be in vision range. But Odo, I don't think he knows.
No, Odo does not know. Flash is not available, but here comes Tahm Kench. Hybrid arrives to join, get an assist. Kill secured by Amazing. Origen get their second. They're still down gold. They're down in map pressure, but they're buying themselves some time.
Oh no, Odo. Unfortunately, he does give away that kill, but Peke might reciprocate the favor.
Wow, they're going real ham. xPeke is able to sidestep for now. Ryu should be able to pick this one up. Distortion gets the kill. Jankos and Ryu, they dive past 2 towers. Ryu's got flash available. Boomerang Blade slows him on the way out. Forgiven's doing some work on that inner turret. Flash forward from Amazing. Gets a knock up on Jankos. That's the 3rd kill of the game to Origen. Glacial Fish is buying time. His Chain of Corruption catches H2K. It's a double kill for Origen. PowerOfEvil's on the board. Very good tag from the Winter's Bite. Piercing Arrow comes out. sOAZ isn't done. He's flashed over the wall. But there's a tower remaining. The lane swap did not kill this one. sOAZ is looking for more. Nara's available, but he needs to charge the bar. Throws out the Boomerang Blade. Here comes Origen. They've gone past the tower. It's tower dive for days. as H2K get away with their lives.
Perhaps a little overzealous from OG. They got themselves 2 kills. They should have prioritized these tier 1 turrets to close the gold gap, but instead they decided to pick themselves up a couple extra kills, which did not net anything. But look at this. Peke, there's very little he can do in this scenario. He doesn't have flash, he doesn't have heal, but the TP from sOAZ means that they're likely going to be able to punish someone here. You can see on your minimap the collapse coming out from OG from the flank. They go for the flash engage onto Jankos. He's going for the early Trinity Force, which means he's very squishy, and then a great chain of corruption from PowerOfEvil enables him to get himself the double kill. And at this point, you prioritize the turrets, but they just got a bit greedy.
Yeah, I feel like there's a bit of headstrong play in the last few minutes. You know, looking at how deep H2K dove just to kill Peke, get him down. Peke didn't even have flash available, so relatively easy kill, I imagine, or I expect rather. But it allows H2K just all of that vision, all that control they have in the bottom half of the map. They get their second dragon. They've got themselves a few kills, and remember all the work they did in the inner turrets? Likely going to be taken down in the next few minutes' time.
Yep. So, OG, they do get themselves a couple of kills on the board. They've gotten themselves the Rift Tower as well. This is going to be good for sOAZ, but remember that he's never likely going to be trading with Odo. Simply because Malzahar will just push the wave and leave. It's what Malzahar likes to do. But in exchange for that, OG have lost themselves a tier 2 turret as well as a dragon. Yeah, exactly.
The trade is just, it's lopsided. Onslaught of Shadows is available. Flash and Ghost are not for PowerOfEvil. Ryu's looking to go forward. The chains are flashed away. Wow, that's still snapped over. Hybrid's in some trouble. Jankos gets one. Onslaught of Shadows backwards. This should be an easy second kill. And H2K make it look simple.
Easy collapse, punishing OG for being so deep in the mid lane without enough vision. Quick shot. How many times have we looked at this minimap and how many times have we said, look at all these wards from H2K, look at all these wards that Origen don't have. And
all of Origen's vision is invested in sOAZ's split pushing power.
Yep.
Now it has resulted on sOAZ being able to at least push down this inner turret, but Odo's just going to try defend, delaying sOAZ going back. I feel that's the priority target now. Inhibitor turret at 18 minutes is almost killed.
sOAZ.
And Odo with the Rylai's is just going to chase sOAZ down. sOAZ in your player cam, shaking his head. You can't get away from that.
You can't kill a Malzahar. He just won't die. He will either just disengage or he will just prioritize on wave clearing. And if you try to go for the all-in, you end up getting punished for it. Speaking of getting punished, Hybrid, a little bit unfortunate. The hitbox on that chain is surprisingly wide.
It's wider than that animation.
Yeah, it is wider than it looks. And so he did get caught up by it. PowerOfEvil had no summoner spells. It resulted in a very easy turnaround from H2K. Very little analysis to do there because it was just a matter of H2K run at OG, kill OG.
And it just extends that lead even further. 4,000 now, Amazing coming in, is going to secure blue buff. I think he smited that one away. Call of the Void and Malefic chunking him down 50% HP. And that's with just the Rylai's and that lost chapter. There's not a lot of ability power yet for Odoamne. How quickly did they get Baron number 1? In the first game was about 25 minutes?
25 minutes.
I feel like they're on track for an earlier one this game.
Yeah, especially with a Malzahar and a Trist.
Lead is more substantial. Don't forget Hecarim. He helps.
Yeah, turning on the helicopter engines.
What's the cooldown on Rampage, actually? I'm going to have a look at that in a second. It is currently 3 seconds.
Ooh, amazing.
Vander is under some trouble. Amazing flash for that knocker. Glacial Fisher will buy some time. Here comes Jankos. He fears 3. Origen are split up and Ryu's got himself the first kill of the fight. Silence onto Amazing and sOAZ. The visions are ticking away on sOAZ. No additional CC comes down, but the Rampage and the red buff takes him down. Devastating charge forward. Now Amazing is the target. It's a 1 for 3 in favor of H2K.
And you talked about how they were on track for an earlier Baron. Well, here we go. H2K can quickly turn their attention to the big purple monster and pick that objective up for themselves.
They've got to be very, very careful. There is still a lot of damage that can come down from Peke and Power if they decide to contest. Vander's coming up from the river. PowerOfEvil's low on mana, 270. He's not going to have a huge number of options available to him. Chain of Corruption isn't available either. Baron's going down. Peke's looking for some possibilities. PowerOfEvil's charging up the piercing arrow. Not going to get stolen. H2K get it. How many kills can they secure on the way out? Nether Grasp onto sOAZ. Forgiven gets the kill, gets the reset. He should be able to rocket jump forward. Instead, rocket jumps away. H2K lose 2, but they managed to get Baron, still remaining on 3 members, and I think that's what matters.
Unfortunately for Ryu, he was still dead. Didn't quite able to pick up that Baron on the end of it.
Thank you for catching that one.
But OG can be pretty happy with the fact that they got themselves a couple kills, but they will lose the Baron. Now, Ryu may end up giving away his life. Nah, he's good.
Come on, man. You play LeBlanc. You knew you could W backwards.
Ooh, look at this. Jankos coming in once again.
Onslaught of Shadows is going to be up in a few seconds. Jankos can go for more. Do it, man. Not going to decide to opt in. Holding the thought, Ryu looks forward and just destroys Peke. Rocket jumps available. Jankos sends amazing back, and that's revenge for the deaths of H2K in the Baron pits.
Ryu telling xPeke, hey, I thought the dinosaurs were extinct. Let me make that a reality. Quickly shuts down Peke. And this is how everything really started off. Look at where Peke is on your minimap, ladies and gentlemen. He is the resident OG split pusher that enables H2K to just force these fights in the mid and constantly come out ahead.
Amazing opted into that. Remember, he flashed forward to start the fight, and obviously in your picture-in-picture, H2K going to secure their first inhibitor of the game.
H2K just realized they have the numbers advantage. It was so easy for Odo to join the fray. They easily clean up as Peke waddles his way into the very end of the fight, and he had some impact, but it wasn't enough.
It's just so tough. You know, Origen know that they're locked into 9th place. They know that this is a practice game, this is a game for pride.
But Misfits would crush you for that mistake.
Yep.
We've seen enough of Misfits. They are not your everyday challenger. They look just like Origen when they were in challenger.
It's the truth. The thing is, Misfits have not had competition who have been able to match them individually.
No.
Now the question is, how far down the ladder has Origen as individual players fallen? You know, when you look at their squad, will they be able to match up role by role versus Misfits? And then if the answer is yes, more closely, then we look at teamwork. Then we look at how good are Misfits, because they've not been challenged. They have to rely on their scrim training to determine how well they can play mid to late game.
All I'm going to say is Hans Sommer in his first week, 1v2. Have we ever got a highlight play for Peke doing a similar thing?
No, unfortunately not. I've seen a number of highlight plays. Not the ones that Peke would want you talking about, unfortunately.
Now look at sOAZ. Side lane, no TP.
That hurts.
But there is a lot of poke damage available.
And there's a teleport for Ryu, and he can go and stop sOAZ's side lane. So this is an advantage. Chain of Corruption misses. PowerOfEvil doesn't find a target. sOAZ is already dead. No, he got gobbled up by Hybrid. One more shot from the explosive charge. That takes him down. Forgiven goes forward. That's 2 members of Origen down. With Baron and a gigantic minion wave, H2K might look to end the game. They've got minions pouring in. That's the second inhibitor down. Super minions will not be long before they make it in. Forgiven, unlucky to not find a crit. A gobble up from Hybrid. The bomb will attack him, but not pick up more. Here comes Ryu. He gets chunked down. Nexus turret number 1 falls. Gnaw backwards, but it's Forgiven in the front line. He's got the Hurricane doing damage. sOAZ is out. Rocket jump forward is available for Forgiven. Decides against it. H2K are onto the Nexus, and in a dominating game 2, send Origen to the promotion tournament with their heads hanging low.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think we can safely say that H2K are looking pretty damn good right now. And even though they were going up against Origen, I think it still demonstrates some of the massive strengths that they have right now.